Awesome. So we're here with another episode of Grow the Game, and we appreciate you being here. Why don't you just introduce yourself for us real quick?
Yeah, I'm an assistant with Oklahoma women's volleyball team um, from the Midwest, from Madison, Wisconsin, just north of Madison. Grew up there, went to school at the University of Wisconsin, and made a couple coaching stops before ending up here in Norman.
Yeah. So we'll just jump right into it because I know a lot of people want to hear what you have to say, and they're looking forward to this interview. So, what's the biggest thing that you see high school girls needing to work on to prepare for college?
Mm-hmm. I think specifically in our area, just like touching the ball a lot more. Like we talk about that all the time in our sport. Like when you think of basketball players that have gotten really good over the years, like all the time that they've put in the gym just shooting around by themselves, when no one's watching, that's where you kind of hone your craft. And the same thing with, you know, a lot of, batting practice for baseball players or, whatever it is. There's not a lot of that in our sport from the top down. And I think that's where the tide kind of needs to shift. Like you were kind of saying, that I learned the game the same exact way. Yes, I had family members that had pretty high level experiences that kind of gave me a glimpse into volleyball, but I got good by putting dents in my garage door with the volleyball. Like that's like I didn't have a coach. Like I didn't have a high school team. I didn't have anything, but I knew I liked what I saw. It looked fun and competitive and challenging. And I knew that I wasn't very good at it right now. So I was like, I didn't have anyone to pepper with me, but I think that's a common misconception with our game is like, oh, I can't go practice because I don't have 5 people with me. No, you don't even need a net. Find something, I think that's been something that's been really cool with the pandemic is we've seen a lot of people kind of branching out with what they've been doing on social media, like just getting creative with how they're still getting touches with, hitting against a garage door, hitting like making their own little, swing machines out of their basketball hoops or hitting on these boxes. And like it sounds kind of simple, but really honestly, just touching the volleyball hundreds and thousands of times, like that's how you get better. You just got to get a feel for it and a feel for how your body moves with the ball. Like it just takes time.
Yeah, when I do private lessons, that's one thing I always try to mentally do is always give them something that is a ball on a wall.
Mm.
Something. Hey, I've got an hour with you, but go do this for hours by
Yeah.
yourself. It's just exactly what you said. We got to be just like basketball. It's no different.
Mm-hmm.
One common misconception that you need those things, and you just need passion. You
Yeah.
just go
My,
do
my
it.
my mom refused to at some point like refused to replace the lights in our kitchen until I moved out because like you're just like moving around the house passing the ball and setting the ball to yourself and break something or whatever, and she's like, that's it, I'm done until you until you go to college. But that's what you got to do. Like, and I'm sure that garage door still is dented up, but I mean that's how I learned the game, truthfully. Like I didn't have, I think players kind of assume like, oh, if I pay for this, 1 hour private lesson, or if I pay for this, like I'm going to learn all these things. And you will learn a lot of things. But like you're saying, like you do need to come away just like, did I get a lot of touches? Were they quality? Is there something that I can take away from this and do at home? Like that's big time.
Yeah. So how do you see strength and conditioning affecting your kids once they're in the program? Because I know you guys have a legit strength and conditioning program. You see those freshmen come in, and I know there's probably a big change.
Yeah. It's not a lot of times we see athletes come in with very little strength and conditioning background, which is not a big deal. Like you'd almost rather them not have any habits than bad ones. And I think a lot of times because of resources and things like you're kind of lumped in as a volleyball player to training with every other sport exactly how everyone trains, and you throw a lot of weight on, and that's really not our sport. Like we do a lot of fast twitch change of direction things, and a lot of what we do in season is kind of just maintenance. So I think that's kind of important to keep in mind. Like, think about what you do in our sport. It's a lot of jumping. It's a lot of fast movements. Is there an aerobic element? For sure. But most of it is like a very quick burst of energy, 8 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds off, and then the next point happens. So that's how you should be training. Like if you're outside running a mile, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 miles, well, that's not really helping your fast twitch muscles. Or if you're, loading on a ton of weight and trying to, this, that, and the other thing, that's not really what we do. Like you got to be jump training and change it, like, sprints and those types of things. So I would say that's probably the biggest leap in that area when you get to college is we train you like a volleyball player, not like a weightlifter or anything like that. And I think there are a lot of high school and clubs that do a really good job training their athletes. So I don't want to misconstrue that, but I think, college is not the end game for college volleyball. Is not the end game for a majority of volleyball players. So if you're going through high school and club and you are in a strength and conditioning program, just make sure you're kind of asking yourself as you're going, okay, are these things that I could see helping my volleyball movements or helping me in my position? And if the answer is no, just do some research. Like that's the beauty of this generation. Like everything's out there on the internet. So do some research, find things that you really feel like you understand the why behind them, and kind of go from there. So it plays a huge role, for sure. And I think there's definitely different segments to it in and out of season for us. But yeah, I mean, that just to simplify it, just make sure you're training yourself in that regard like a volleyball player.
Yeah, I can definitely tell girls that have been volleyball specific trained. They're more explosive, like you're saying, and that quick twitch. Just moving fast rather than squatting 400 pounds.
Right.
More of that
Right.
stuff. So,
And I see that all the time. Like I think of, I don't know if this is still a thing or not, but I just associate this with girls high school volleyball. Like, oh, we have to go run the mile for our tryouts or something. And like I get that maybe that's like a tradition or something for a program, but that also really isn't like conducive to what we do. Unless you're running a 100-meter sprint and then you're taking a little, that's more of a volleyball thing. So I see that from players all the time. They're like, well, I've been doing all this cardio and running and I've really leaned up, but I'm not jumping like I used to. I'm like, well, what have you been doing when you're running? Are you doing intervals? Are you doing hit stuff? Or are you doing like distances? And that plays a big factor in it.
yeah, I actually saw during a coaching clinic a lady. I can't remember where she coaches at, but basically she has these challenges that they have to do that were basic. They're basically fitness challenges to say, hey, here's our basic. This is where we should all be with shuttling, or it's cardio, or whatever it may be. And so I thought that was a really interesting way to give them kind of goals fitness wise,
Mm-hmm.
and have them striving for something, because I know it can be monotonous and boring sometimes when you don't see that right in front of you, and that instant change like you do with learning a new skill sometimes. So I thought that was a very interesting way to incorporate some fitness type stuff into there.
What we're starting to do is turn it into more of like a competition. Like we've just decided 3 times a week while they're doing their conditioning portion of things, like it'll be individual and team competition based, kind of like, I don't want to say CrossFit because that gives people like the immediate like red X stop, but it's
Right.
we did the workout as a staff, and my boss, she's like in crazy shape and kicked our butts, but she like took us through it, and we're doing this. The concept is like our team is kind of split into teams, and that's your kind of way to get your competitive fix when we're not on the court too. Like we're going as many rounds as possible. It's whatever it is, 25 ankle jumps, 50-yard sprint, abs, 50-yard sprint, that's round 1, and then you tag into your next person, or maybe it's you versus the person to the left and right of you. So we're just trying to find ways to infuse competition into everything we do, not just, okay, let's make sure we get our 30, 45-minute workout in today. Like, no, let's get after it and make sure that we're still competing with each other.
Yeah, I think that's a very good aspect that we should all keep in mind is still have them compete. I mean, that's such a good motivation to
Yeah.
really make them push themselves. So you're the assistant there, yeah?
Yep.
What are some things that you've been entrusted with as far as maybe responsibilities and jobs?
Mm-hmm. I'm our recruiting coordinator, which I didn't originally come in as. Lindsay, my boss, and I met at the USA Collegiate National Team tryouts. So she was a court coach there, and this would have been, I guess, almost 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And I was doing the like stats, data volley side of things. So that's where we met, and that's what I, was doing for our program initially, like scouting, and those types of things. And we kind of all share training responsibilities as far as that goes. But now I think that's a big difference at the Division I level, or at least at our level. Like I can spend a lot of time recruiting, and that's like the lifeblood of our program. Making sure we've got elite athletes coming through the doors here. So that's a majority of my like day to day. But we kind of all do a little bit of everything, and I think that's a misconception too for like my boss Lindsay. She's not just a volleyball coach, and we get asked that all the time, like, oh, you coach volleyball, like what else do you do? Like this is our full time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're very blessed to do that, but we're also assistant strength coaches. We're also assistant sports psychologists. We also are meal planners and travel coordinators and social media managers and kind of CEOs and executives in this business that is our volleyball program. So my like main responsibilities would be recruiting, and I love doing it. But yeah, I've kind of had a hand in a little bit everything for the years.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think especially head varsity coaches, especially here in Oklahoma, they understand that of you got to worry about buses and where's the snacks coming from, and we got to schedule these games, and wait, this team dropped, and we got to. It's just there's
Yep.
so much to it that it is not a couple hour job a day. I mean,
Yep.
it is hours if you take it serious. It's some time.
And I think youth coaches, like high school and under and club, like y'all are the real heroes. Like we're blessed with so many resources and people around us that are our support groups that I get to focus so much of my time and attention on recruiting. But I've coached high school and club, and like you probably experienced now, like you don't necessarily have 4, 5, 6, 7 people around you that you can say, hey, this is what you're doing, this is what you're doing. Like that's you a lot of the times. You're the one driving the bus and picking up the meals and do it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think high school coaches just get like it's tough, not for everybody. And I think that's another reason why we don't have a lot of great coaches, is because there is, I think, this misconception, like high school coaches are human too. Like they make mistakes, but they also have a lot of things to do aside from just the X's and O's in the training side of things. So like I said, you guys are the ones that do all the we get the joy of being selective of picking those top tier athletes to come that want to come join us here. You guys are the ones that have to get them to that point. So
Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk about libero because
yeah.
you guys have quite the libero in Keaton Kinley.
Yeah.
Um, how important is a libero, and what are some traits that are not necessarily skill wise that those liberos need to have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was the position that I played in college too. That, I mean, it over the last decade and a half, like that's become extremely important. And it's kind of crazy to think of like in the not too recent past, it wasn't a thing, but that's kind of like your quarterback of the back row. And they're the person that, leads to good first contact. And even when they're not the one touching the ball, like they have to kind of, how we say it is like they have to be the, the person directing traffic, and kind of knowing everything, because they've got to know what, play we're about to run, or what we're trying to do offensively. And they got to be communicating with all of our people, because not just the three people that are out there in the back row or passers, it's the people at the net too. And we got to know, at our level, we have a lot of film, and things that we can do scouting wise. So what type of service and what type of these are coming. So, there's definitely more of like a studied role, but the intangibles, like I think like all the best liberos have a little bit of crazy in them. They're the one flying all over the place and making the crazy plays. But I think the best of the best are the ones that, like, maybe sometimes you don't notice because they just read the game very well, and they're in the right spot all the time. Some Keaton, for example, we just give her a lot of responsibility because we know she does read the game well, but she does make a lot of those flashy plays because we give her a lot of court and she can cover it. So I think those are some of the intangibles, is just kind of directing the flow of things so it doesn't look choppy. But that's how we knew, that's how we knew we could affect change super quickly here, was a really good first and second contact. And we knew we needed to have an elite libero to do that, because if you're in system, even if you don't have the best of the best attackers at that moment, you can do some good things. And that makes it just that much harder to defend if you're on the net, point after point after point. That's tough for blockers and backcourt folks.
Yep, and I mean statistically, the women's game is determined a lot by the passing and serving. Yep. So having that libero, especially at you guys' level, makes such a difference, especially at the high school level where attacking is definitely, I don't think, up to par compared to the college level. And so, really getting that first and second contact makes a huge difference for us at the high school level.
Yeah, and I think that's a big jump too. Probably the biggest jump is, like, we very rarely nowadays see athletes that are ready to come in and pass for us right away, even if they're very elite at the level that they come from, or even if they've seen high level volleyball. The serving is just so, because a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times they come through the ranks. Like, when you're young, you're taught, and you hear this all the time from parents, like, oh, your serve's like a free throw, don't miss it. Like, well, that's not the case, because a free throw is, if it's in, it's a point. A serve, if it's just in, that does not equal a point. That just means you can over the net. I think that's a lot of times what we see players on the receiving end of things, like they are passing a lot of balls that were just, the goal of the serve was to just keep it in and not to necessarily create some chaos and get a team out of system. So, we're lucky when we do have those, when we are able to recruit those athletes that are ready to pass for it. I think that's a pretty big adjustment. A lot of the time the serve and pass game is just at a different level.
And I think that has to play with, they don't see it day in and day out, typically. And so just like anything, you've got to get kind of adjusted and caught up, and the iron sharpens iron kind of mentality with it. So I kind of want to talk about some energy and culture. What does that look like at the D1 level for you guys and your team?
Honestly, I don't think it's a lot different than what you and like your teams probably do. I think the difference is just, when athletes are coming to us, they've made this commitment to play at the highest level, and vice versa. Like, we've kind of signed on to do something, and I know that we've gone through a process to get to that point where they're wearing our gear. You know what I mean? Like, we've had those conversations. We feel like they're a good fit for us culturally, and they're trying to achieve the same goals as us. Whereas, high school and school coaches, like, you get the players that come through your door, so that's a little bit different than maybe our experience. But I think, we do a lot of the same things. Like, we're just trying to create ownership in what they're doing. We're trying to make sure they know that we value them as more than players, and they get to know each other. And like you were saying, that a lot of it is player driven. And Lindsay says all the time, you know, if it's important to you, it's important to us. And I think that's something that we preach all the time. Like, we just want them to know, like, there's not anything that's too small for us or too big. Like, we want you to know we're always here for you. So I think a lot of times it's not just about X's and O's. Like, your players have to trust you and know that you care about them before they're going to just sign over on, you know, going to war with you. But once they know that, and once they can feel that, I think it's, you know, that's when it's game on.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned the player driven. You kind of hinted to that. How does that look for you guys? Do you have any particular ways that you guys implement or encourage that kind of player led mentality?
Yeah. I think just naturally you have those players that like step up when those moments happen, you know, like your libero or whatever it is, you know, those people that are your kind of floor captains or whatever. But this year we implemented kind of like a council that was chosen by them, you know. They got to vote on it, and those were the people that they felt like kind of best represented either their class or their voice or their group. And I think there were maybe 5 of them. And it's not just starters, it's anybody, you know, anyone that they feel like, you know, represents our program in the right way, like academically, in the weight room, on the volleyball court, as a human being. They just, you know, wear the OU brand well. And we feel like those are the people that, you know, we can kind of trust to disseminate information, and can come to us with information and those types of things. So we kind of started that this last year. So it's in its infancy. It's an inaugural year, but I've done something similar to that at other places too. But yeah, I mean, just little things like that. And we do a lot of the same things, kind of like I was saying that you guys probably do, you know, like this whole kind of quarantine phase. And when I know people are like completely over Zoom at this point, but we did a lot of like every Monday we were sending in our group me, like, this is something that we're reading this week, this is something we're watching, this is something we're listening to. So you know, as a staff, and it could be anything, it doesn't necessarily have to be volleyball related, it could have been cultural leadership, it could have been like current events, it could have been anything. So just things to get like them talking, get their minds working. In springs past, we've done like big talk questions where they have to, like, here's your buddy for the week, here's your question, you guys got to go grab lunch, grab coffee, whatever you want to do, but at the end of the week we're going to get together and talk about what you guys talked about. So just finding ways for them to connect with each other outside of the volleyball court and connect with our staff, I think that's kind of important too.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest shift I've seen in programs, is when it really starts to become player led, and they take ownership of where they want to go. And then when coaches help encourage and focus on the culture and that type of leadership, instead of just, you know, we're running and we're 4-hour practice, and that doesn't tend to go as well from what I've seen. It's usually those people are like, all right, you're kind of in charge, I'm going to give you some direction, but you're the motor, you know?
Yeah. I think too, like, what I think back to just myself as a younger coach, like when I was coaching high school in my early 20s, like I just put all my stock in training. And like, that's how we're going to get better. And like, okay, we're, you know, maybe things aren't clicking, we're just going to spend a bunch more hours passing, or we're going to spend a lot more time, you know, defending this, that, or the other thing, or working on our offense. And sometimes that's not the answer. Like, it's hard as a coach to devote time to things that you can't like see with your eyes, but like the mental side of things, and the just the cohesion, like the bonding, and those moments are just as important, and they need your time, even when it's tough and it's like, crap, we've got 2 games this week, I'd rather be spending our time, you know, blocking, you know, working on our blocking or working on our serving or whatever it is. You got to spend time on all of it.
Yep. I would almost venture to say the mental and emotional aspect is almost more important than their physical, just because of that team chemistry and that once they trust you kind of thing, they're running through a wall for you. Having that can just mean and grow to be so much for them.
Yeah.
So but I like that you mentioned a question or two ago about, they have to trust you. Well, I know their parents do too. So what would be some advice that you would give parents, both of kids that are just maybe like prospective student athletes, but also ones you currently have? Let's just parent advice for them.
Yeah. That's tough because parents, like when we're going through when we're going through the recruiting process, like I don't know how else to say it, but like parents very rarely will create an opportunity for you, but they can very quickly lose one for you. So I think a lot of times, like, like when I stroll up on a court and I'm watching a kid play, okay, I'm also watching, I'm watching the sidelines and watching the parents, like how are they interacting with the coaches and the players, because you can a lot of times you can quickly find, the parents of an athlete. Maybe they're going to bring them a water bottle between sets. And like, if I see a kid chuck a water bottle at their parent, like, go fill this up for me. Like that's for me. Like, that's not a respectful kid. That's probably not, so I think parents need to just encourage their kids to do the best that they can, be cheerleaders for them, and respect the coaches, and we've been blessed with really great athletes, and I think that that's a result of really great parents that have led them through that process, because like I said, like, coaches don't have the answers to everything. They're going to screw up, but instead of asking your daughter, well, how many kills did you have tonight? It's like, okay, or did you win or whatever? Like, okay, did you get better? Did you have fun? There's other questions you can ask that maybe that just aren't always results oriented, but also like teach your kids to respect their coaches and take them through that process too, because they're probably going to have a coach sometime during their career that they don't like, or that they don't agree with, or maybe that you as a parent don't agree with. But how you handle that is kind of everything. And I think that's life for you. Like, you're going to work with people that you don't like. You're going to work with people that you don't agree with, or you're going to, whatever it is, like whether it's on the volleyball court or in a conference room or getting coffee, like, you're going to have those experiences wherever you go, but how you handle it is more important than the situation that's happening. So it's super important to have all different kinds of coaches before you go, get to the college game. But I think as parents, it's just embrace that experience. It's not always going to be fun. There's going to be bumps, and just know, like, when you do get to the next level, whether that's varsity in high school, or maybe you made the next top club team, or maybe you made it to college volleyball, like, everybody on your team was probably an all-star at their level. And certainly when they get to us, like, they were all worlds in their high school volleyball careers. So now you're jumping into a new arena where everyone around you had that same experience, but now you're being asked to play a different role. So you got to adjust to that. And I think, parents, just be there for your kids. And when I was working at the University of Wisconsin, this was Kelly's and company's first year there. We had a meeting at the beginning of the year, like, with, kind of a meet and greet. And we told the families, like, Kelly told the families, like, there's going to be days when your kid calls you and they are just not happy about, they had a terrible practice, or they didn't like what coach had to say, or whatever it is. And you just got to know that, like, that's okay. Guide them through it, be there for them. But that's part of the process too. Like, that's how you grow. It's not always sunshine and rainbows and kills and great days, and there's tough ones too, but handling it the right way is super important.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that's your question at all, but
you guys gave so much that it was like, try to unpack a couple of things. A couple of things that kind of stuck out there is, talking about you throwing water bottles and stuff. I think it's our job as coaches as well to teach them how to respect their parents. and teach them to be good humans too, and how to interact in the same way that you're talking about. The parents need to teach them to respect us. I think it's a vice versa. It's a team, us and parents trying to make these kids better,
Yeah.
and functioning in society.
Yep.
We need more of that. The other one was talking about watching parents, and I know when I go to a club tournament like this past week, and I'm watching, and I love, but I hate it. I love to watch the train wreck, but I can't stand to see parents try to like coach them, do this, and you need to block that, and I'm like, that's maybe not within the system.
Yeah.
Like there's certain things maybe that coach is trying to do, or you're telling them something every time, and it's just like you're paralyzing them with this over analyzing just data just flowing through their head, and it's like just let them struggle if they're struggling. Let coach, and
The same way that you and I don't want our kids like looking at us after every play for an answer. Like you got to let them work through it sometimes. Like we don't want them when we roll up on a court to be looking at mom and dad after every point, or mom and dad trying to get their attention after every point. So
yeah.
that's big. And I think like I said, we've been blessed with some really great athletes and families. And like, for example, Olivia Curtis, Oklahoma native, and our two Oklahoma natives that we have, Sarah Maris, who's from the Tulsa area. Sarah has played every position under the sun for us, and went from being a 6 rotation outside to having to play middle for us this year. And athletes and families, when thrown could not handle it very well. But you know what? She just said, I just want to play, and this is my opportunity. And I know that not everyone has the opportunity to play. It doesn't mean that they're less important. That just means their roles is a little bit different. Their status on this team is just as important as mine, but she had that opportunity and she embraced it. But this year alone for us, in our however many matches we had, she played 6 rotations on the left. She played 3 rotations in the middle. She played 3 rotations on the right. She did everything besides set for us. So, and Olivia Curtis, who did everything for our high school team for 4 years, did set this year. We threw her in, and we just said, hey, we've got a week to make you as good of a setter as you can be. And, that's, thank you, COVID. We've had to deal with some experiences, but she, did phenomenally, and she embraced that role really, really well, because she's a competitor, and she waited for her opportunity, and it was there, and she did a fantastic job. So they're not all great uplifting stories like that, but that's too just from homegrown talent kids that just really great competitors that are great teammates too.
Yeah, and I was on the west side in the 4A level, and boy, I was happy when she jumped up to the OU. tired of playing against her, and she has a headache.
I was just looking at some of her high school records the other day, and I was looking at their like top 10, and it was like 300 career kills for it. And then you get up to Olivia, and it's like 2,000.
Yeah. I just remember, watching her play and think, man, hitting out of the back row, she was so smart because she would be able to put some power, put it in corners, make people start wanting to block her from the back row. But then she had this roll shot that would just roll right over the top of that block, and it just put people in a pickle. What are you taking away? Because you got to give something.
And she's a great example too of she was one of our first kids that we recruited when our whole staff got here, and we said, we have no idea what this kid will do for us, but we know that we want her in our gym because she's a great competitor. She makes her team better every time she's on the court. So, and that's a good example for any kid out there playing. Like, she's not the tallest kid in the world. She doesn't jump out of the gym. She's, a good teammate, a really great competitor, never takes a point off from what she's doing. And she wants to be good at what she does. So it doesn't really matter what she does for us. We know she's going to give it her best, and she's going to try to get better at it. So, those are the kids you'll take in your gym all day, every day.
Yep. And I'm pretty sure she's also pretty good at basketball and
She's the one of those, like, give her 10 minutes and she can probably be good at just about anything.
Yeah, yeah,
Give her a little bit of time to figure it out and she could probably do it.
yeah. Um, so we talk about these kids, but let's talk about us as coaches. Is like I've said with Josh Collins out at SWASU, like people put college coaches on this such high pedestal of you guys know everything and you don't make mistakes. And so how do you guys still better yourselves? I mean, do you go to clinics? Do you just talk with other coaches? Like, what's kind of your strategies?
Yeah. I mean, we do a little bit of everything. Like, when I'm talking, even just recruiting, which, like, I'll get on a call with my people. Like, how are you guys handling, recruiting during COVID or during a dead period, or this year's so different? But, we've done everything from, each of us has spent time, in the USA gym in different capacities, even if it's just to watch and shag balls, like,
Mm-hmm.
or, Colin, our other assistant, had been like a practice player with them last summer. Lindsay and Kyle and myself have all spent time in their gym just watching. AVCA conventions. Like, there's always things that we can be looking at and be better at, but, like, it's nothing magical or easy. And I think we go through a lot of the same things that high school and club coaches. I was just telling someone this the other day. Like you're saying, I think you have it right. Like, a lot of people put us on this pedestal, like, oh, you must know everything, or you must be so good at what you do. Um, that's not the case. We still have, doubts about ourselves in all the time. We still make mistakes. We still have things to learn and grow about. But I think what sets people apart is those that think that they know it all or have it wrapped up, versus those that are, willing to embrace that, growth mindset. And I think we've got a good group of, people that are all about that. Like, Lindsay's very good about making sure we have, if we find a professional development opportunity that we feel really speaks to us or will help us, or that she finds for us, like, she's always about it. So I think working for somebody or with people that, you know, she just said this to our group the other day, like, it's cool to care about things. Um, like, we're never too cool to care about doing something, whether that's, getting an A on a test, whether that's, making sure we pick up our trash on the bus, whether that's, being a really good passer, or just competing in anything, whatever it is. Like, we're never too cool to care about it. So
Yeah, that is the constant thing I hear is that you still have doubts, you still feel like you failed the team at times. We should have subbed here, or went after this blocker or whatever it is, and you don't have it all figured out. You're reeling your heads over there about what to do about a certain hitter or something too. You just don't have the answers all the time.
yeah.
But I think it's that right there is just having the growth mindset of there's the people that think they know it all and the people that know they don't know it all. And,
Yeah.
it just makes such a huge difference. And I try my best as a head coach to find those opportunities for my staff to coach them up as well and give them opportunities to grow and, not just, handle laundry or whatever it is. It's, let's go to a gold medal squared clinic or something as a group and, talk about it. And we need COVID to end so that we can
I know, right?
get
But
back to those
I
types.
think another piece of it too is, like, a lot of times people assume, like, oh my gosh, you were such a great player. Um, you must be a fantastic coach, or vice versa. Like, you are such a great coach, like, you must be a phenomenal player. Like, those two are not anywhere near synonymous. And that goes for any sport. Like, some
Yeah.
of the best coaches that I've ever worked with or seen have never played volleyball at any level. And vice versa. Some of the best players that I've ever seen or coached or played with, like, have never coached volleyball ever, and probably wouldn't be very good at it. Like, that doesn't mean that they're those two do not go hand in hand. So, like, just because you see somebody, bouncing balls at the 10-foot line, don't just go assume, like, they can teach you the best way to do that, or they're the best person for you, and vice versa. Like, that's kind of a common misconception too. Like, you
Yep.
just want cares about you, that wants you to learn, you feel like can teach you something in the way that you need to learn it. And that's kind of it.
Yeah, I actually, it's funny you say that. I just saw on some strand on the internet of some guy had said, if your coach doesn't have a excellent resume as far as playing, then I'm not ever sending my kid there. And people, of course, just started destroying that. Like, are you saying that? I think it's Kelly. Did he ever play?
Not volleyball. He just grew up around it and around
Right.
some volleyball coaches in the country, but he was a runner. Like he didn't play.
Right, exactly. So it was like these big name people are like, you're telling me he don't know what he's doing? You're not going to send your kid there? I mean, he's one of the best.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Good motivator, good teacher of just life and volleyball, and that's like doesn't mean you had to be a high level player. Just it a lot of times those two do match up, but not all the time.
yeah, yeah. So we'll end on kind of help the other coaches and kind of adding maybe something to their toolboxes. What's maybe one drill you would say, if you haven't tried this, you should look to implement it?
Mm-hmm. I would say just overarching, keep your practices simple. Like you do not need to have this booklet of 150 drills to be this phenomenal coach. Like you can do 6 things every practice, and every practice can look very similar as far as structure, and just change the focus of what you're doing. Like maybe you always start with we're going to do a position breakout. We're going to do a warm up as a group. We're going to do some sort of 6-on-6, and your team knows that that's going to be your segment every day. That's what it's going to look like. That also provides some consistency for your team. Like they know what to expect when they come in your gym every day, and it kind of allows you to flow from thing to thing a little bit easier. I think that I certainly thought that when I was first starting coaching, like I have to have a new drill every day for my team or we're not getting better. And that's really not the case. Like you can do within the same, wash drill or same whatever drill, a lot of different things. You can focus on your, outsides hitting, working on scoring out a system. You can work on your first ball contact. There can be all sorts of things. Like you just have to get creative with how you score things and how you how you're competitive there. But my advice would be to just keep it simple. Like, and that goes for, YMCA to Division 1. Like keep it simple. It doesn't need, just when they get to us, it doesn't mean that it gets all sorts of crazy complicated. We still keep things pretty simple. We just try to be more efficient at a higher level. That's really it. But you'd come into our gym and you wouldn't think, oh my gosh, this is so crazy complicated. I would never be able to do this. Like you could probably take our practice plan and run it just about everywhere. You just have to adapt some things.
Yep. And you tell me how you feel, but I feel like it's not the amount of drills it's the amount of tweaks you know how to make to them.
Right.
Like you said, the scoring, or maybe how you enter it, or maybe it's a number of reps, not necessarily at a time, but in a row, or just those little tweaks. I think you can use butterfly from YMCA all the way to
Yep.
varsity. I mean, it's just, what are you expecting? What is the goals? What are you
Yep.
measuring? I mean, it could be form at the varsity level. It's not just passing it. It's, are you holding your platform or your angle or whatever it is. It's just being able to tweak all your drills so that you work on what you want to work on.
Yep. Just be like, we at OU, our practices look very similar every day. Like they know we're gonna, start with our strength coach, get them into a little bit of or we'll get them moving first with like a little cooperative something on the court. They'll do a group warm up. We'll do a position breakout, and then we'll come together and finish out practice. That's how we do it, and that almost never changes except for game days. And even then, we have like a very simple kind of ritual, and we even put in like a little fun, we call it Baggeroni. I know people call it different things, but where they got the 2 balls and you got to keep them alive, and it's team versus team, and just like a fun little game day competition. But I think there's something to be said for when your kids come into the gym and they know, to some degree, what to expect. Like there's a psychological safety, they know and they're ready to get better, but because they know what to expect, even if they know, it's not going to look the same as yesterday and the day before, but we know what our gym is about.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on here, and I know there was just so much good info you gave, and I know everyone was looking forward to this, and I'm sure they will be extremely happy with what they heard. So I just want to thank you, for helping um, kind of this movement we're trying to make, and helping coaches, players, parents, everyone just to grow the game and the opportunities here in Oklahoma.
Yep. Thank you for doing this. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, this is growing the game is the most important thing that we can do, and I think that's where our state starts to make some strides, like from just getting kids exposed to volleyball, getting coaches and parents exposed to volleyball. It's such a phenomenal sport, and it provides so many opportunities. And I from little tiny tots playing volleyball all the way to the masters division at USA. Like, this is a sport you can love for your whole life. So thank you for growing it here in Oklahoma.
I appreciate that.
Let me know if you need anything. Appreciate it.
Yep.